Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, which we hope will be particularly interesting because it deals with developments in sparkling wine in the Loire Valley, which has long had a very traditional way of making its sparkling wines. And now there's some good innovation happening, particularly from Ackermann. And it gives me personal pleasure to introduce this because Ackermann was the first sparkling wine house in the Loire that I visited early on in my wine writing career, and that was rather a long time ago. And also, when I was back there in April this year, had the pleasure of re-meeting Séverine, the technical director, who I'd originally met many, many moons ago when she worked at Clément in Gascony. So we have three speakers today. We have the CEO of Maison Ackermann, Laurent Ranteau, whose background, his qualifications were in business studies and agricultural engineering. He's held senior management positions in a number of important champagne houses, including Veuve Clicquot. And he's also worked at Cellier de Dauphin in the Rhône. We have Séverine Le Paul, who's the technical director of Ackermann, which means she's effectively the main enologist. Her degree was in Montpellier, and she's worked for the Grand Chai de France, Clément, the big cooperative in Gascony, and also in Chile. So she's got wide experience. And keeping them both in order is Pierre Blanchard, who's the European export manager, who's got various export managing experience, including in China. So a good team, and over to them. Pierre, over to you.
Thanks, Liz. I think it's going to be Laurent who will start with first. We're going to just give a quick background on the history for bringing you all the knowledge of why we are able to talk about the innovation in Loire for the sparkling with two different methods, traditional and Charmat method. And after we'll go through the different grapes and different method during our discussion. So Laurent, if you are okay, I will let you take the lead.
Thanks, Pierre. So I'd like to start with a short introduction of the Loire Valley. The Loire Valley is France's third largest vine growing region, stretching from the Atlantic coast, where we have the Muscadet area. There we have a very oceanic climate, so quite fresh, lots of wind, and to the center region where we have the Sancerre appellation, and there we have a more continental climate. So globally speaking, we can say that the Loire Valley is a point of equilibrium where north meets south around the Loire River. The Loire Valley vineyard extends over 65,000 hectares, divided in 4 regions. The most Atlantic one is the Muscadet, we call it the Pays Nantais. Then we have the Anjou and Saumur area, where we produce most of the still wine rosé, but also this is the main region for Crémant de Loire and Saumur sparkling. Then we have the Touraine area, where we have both Sauvignon and sparkling as well, with Vouvray or Crémant de Loire, like the Montmousseau house. And at the end of the Loire, we have the Sancerre and Pouilly region, where you get the most well-known Sauvignon Blanc from the Loire Valley, plus some Pinot Noir. In the Loire Valley, we produce over 50 different type of appellations. So there is a huge diversity of grape varieties, of terroir. This is why we have so many appellations, both still and sparkling wines. So let's now dive into the sparkling of the Loire Valley. Everything started with Mr. Ackermann, Jean-Baptiste Ackermann, who was the pioneer of fine sparkling wines from the Loire. Jean-Baptiste Ackermann, in the early of the 18th century, implemented in the Loire Valley the famous méthode champenoise sparkling elaboration, using white wine produced in the Loire out of white grapes, especially Chenin and Chardonnay. And he used exactly the same process as we have in the Champagne region, meaning the second fermentation in bottles. That was the beginning of everything for sparkling wine in the Loire Valley, because thanks to this implementation of the second fermentation in bottles and the special care he had with his wine, Maison Ackermann had a very quick high recognition for its wines from the Loire Valley, and he got gold medals in different wine exhibition at that time. For example, in Brussels, where he got a gold medal, and before any champagne. So Ackermann, since the beginning, has been recognized by his peers to make great wines from the Loire Valley. And that was, I would say, the beginning of everything in the Loire Valley. And of course, step by step, other houses started to implement the same approach. Until today, and I think this is probably one of the key things. And I know we can, these are things we meet in the Champagne region as well. But one of the key elements that makes our sparkling Crémant de Loire and Saumur special is the fact that, first of all, we use our own vineyard to produce our Crémant and Saumur. We use the three grapes that we most use in Crémant and Saumur, meaning Chenin, Chardonnay, and Cabernet Franc. We do select the heart of the cuvée, meaning that when we do the pressing method, we really use the heart of the cuvée to get the most fine wine, the fine must, sorry, when we do the pressing process. Of course, we keep separated each grape variety, meaning Chenin on one side, Chardonnay on one side, Cabernet on the other side, to really keep this opportunity of blending after the fermentation. And the idea in all the process is really to keep the freshness and the fruitness which characterize the Ackermann style. So what is important to understand is that since Mr. Ackermann he started the company in 1811, and up to now we use the same method, the same process, the same cellars to age the wine, and that is something special in the Loire Valley. And Liz was saying that his first visit in the Loire Valley was Ackermann. Ackermann was the first sparkling house producing sparkling wine with the méthode champenoise for his wine. So I'll let now Séverine to go into more details regarding the grapes, but also the sparkling method.
Thanks, Laurent. I will start with the grapes. For that, talk about quickly about the main. As Laurent said, we have three main. grapes we use for the traditional method. You saw some pictures, historical pictures of Ackermann. And now you can see we have some pictures of our vineyards. Here, this is our vineyards, the Dames de la Vallée, where we had our Chenin and Chardonnay and some Cabernet Franc. For our Chenin, what is typical for our Chenin is this is the most famous grape on the region, because this is the richness and the most expressive grapes through the terroir we have in Loire. It can go from the Anjou to Touraine with a different climate, as Laurent said. It ripened really late, and it allows us to go from dry to really sweet wine. And that also really interesting grapes, because we are able to do all the traditional method wine, like the Crémant, obviously, well known for everyone, but also some more niche appellation like Saumur, Touraine Mousseux, and Bouvray. Sorry. Secondly, we have the Chardonnay, quite famous all around the world for its body, for also in Champagne. They use it for the same vision as we have in Loire, for the flesh style and the roundness, and bring more body on the traditional method wine. And at the end, Laurent mentioned the Cabernet Franc. We use it for the white, but also for the rosé, to bring tannin touch and the spicy fruits, to have some complementary and complexity aromas to be blended with our white grapes. And then why we first organized this webinar with Liz is because we also have some ancestral grape varieties in Loire. We are quite proud of being part of, and Séverine will give you some information about this.
Yes, we have 2 ancestral variety grapes we used in our blends. We have the Gros Noir. The Gros Noir is planted in Loire Valley in the region of Saumur and Tours. It's used mainly to produce rosé wines. It's well adapted to the pressure of mildew and oidium. We see this year is the reality, because the pressure is very high, and this grape is very vigorous and resistant. It gives wines with softness and fruity notes, very well adapted to the market, the no market. And we have the Pinot de Nice. The Pinot de Nice, it's a typical Loire grapes, because we have these grapes since very long times ago. It's come from the region of Touraine, the region of Vendôme, at the east of the Loire Valley. The other name is Chenin Noir. Is not the same family that the Chenin Blanc, but we don't know its parents. But the similarity with the Chenin Blanc is the capacity of these grapes to make still and sparkling wines. It's very interesting to make specific process cultural to make a still or sparkling wines. The wines of Pinot de Nice are very aromatic and brings notes of bunches and berries. Truly nuts is the spicy aroma of l'épice, spicy nuts.
Spicy nuts.
It's a rare signature for our wine X Noir, for Ackermann X Noir, since 15 years ago. Adapted to the market actual with a low alcohol and intensity and fruity notes. It's very well adapted to the global warming too, because it doesn't suffer from disease and supports very well warm temperature and lack of water. And the blend between classical Loire grapes like Chenin, Cabernet Franc, and old grapes like Pinot de Nice or Gros Noir gives the wines with a complexity and intensity very well adapted to the market.
So here we can see a really interesting vision of 2 different methods, but with a lot of different grapes. So now we're going through the method. We know that most of you are aware of the traditional method. So what we'll go for is just give a quick presentation, give some advantage and disadvantage of this method. And then we will talk about the Charmat method, the method we are using for the ancestral grape mainly, to allow them to express themselves. Okay.
So to begin, whatever the production method we use, it's essential to control the cultural method. The vineyards must be managed with the objective sparkling wines. The harvest period is very important and must be right. We taste the berries twice a week to decide the day of the harvest. The harvest is early in the morning to preserve the freshness. Freshness is a very important point to the sparkling wines. Now, for the traditional method, we make the second fermentation in bottles. The method is the only method in Loire Valley to make the AOP, like Crémant de Loire, Sparkling Saumur, Sparkling Vouvray, and Touraine. The advantages of the traditional method are the complexity and the signature of our wine houses. The complexity came from the first blend and the long aging on yeast too. We can taste primary and secondary aromas. Longer is the aging, more complexity we have. The bubbles are very thin and give a long final. The balance between acidity, fruity, and roundness give a specific balance in nose and palate. The last touch for the elaboration of the traditional method wines is the expedition liquor. It brings our well personalization
of the wine. Yeah, this is how we can call the sur-mesure wine. This is how we can give our own touch. So also, as you can imagine, we also have some disadvantage for this method, and we saw only one major, especially this year. We can see that now the financial asset is the major party of this method. This financial asset is shown by the long-term aging for the Surly's aging, because for us, it's minimum 12 months for the Crémant, 9 months for the Saumur. And that give you for the harvest 2022, a delivery for 2024. So which is really important for the AOP wine to age and to have all this complexity as Séverine mentioned. So for us, the storage is for all the producer. I mean, the storage and the vinification are the main issue, if I may, for the pricing for this method. So this is mainly the most disadvantageous part of this traditional method. But then we have in Loire Valley the facilities for producing Charmat method wines, and then we have some possibilities.
Yes, and the major difference is the second fermentation for the Charmat method, because the second fermentation is made in vat directly. In the Loire Valley, we are the only company with the specific equipment, because the vats are specific to make a wine with 5 bar of suppression. And we have...
If I may, sorry, I just want to show you the tank we use for the Charmat method compared to a classic stainless steel tank we will use for the aging of the first vinification.
Yes.
For the...
And we have this equipment since the 80s. So we have a long experience of this method. The objective is to have fruity and very expressive wines. The vin de base is on the freshness and the primary notes. So it's a first selection of the vin de base. And the second fermentation is made to have a distinctive fruity character and youngness. The advantages for the Charmat method is the level of aromatic notes and the during of the process. In 1 month, we can make a wine well adapted to a new market with an aromatic specific. So it's very, very interesting to new markets. It's possible to make aging on lees, but it's not the first objective of this method. The quality and intensity notes are the more important point. We want to insist of this point.
And then this is the disadvantage of this method, but we cannot really have a disadvantage in terms of complexity, because this is mainly a kind of wine we will create à la demande, more or less, because this is really on the profile required by the different final customer. We mainly create those wine like the Prosecco quite easily. If I made in 3 months, they can be available for the market, where the appellation wine like Crémant can wait 12 months, as I previously said. So we will have this availability as a disadvantage compared to the Crémant, but also we will have the complexity. We just think about it because there is no tertiary aroma. It's just purely the expression of the grape. So here we also are in adequation with some markets who are really focused on straight and specific neat wine that we don't have on the Crémant, because we have this yeast aroma and brioche taste for the aging on traditional method wine. And for conclude, I think Laurent, you would just give us this feedback.
Yeah, thanks, Pierre. So in the Loire Valley, the combination of terroirs, of grape varieties, and historical know-how provides all its fine sparkling wine with an unrivaled diversity. I think diversity is definitely what's defined the Loire region, and freshness, as far as the wine profile is concerned, is also, I think, the most appropriate adjectives because of the climate and because of the grapes variety we use. This array of different wines offer consumers a wide choice in which they are bound to find the type of wine they are looking for. Ackerman, the pioneer of fine sparkling wines from the Loire region, has also been producing de-alcoholized fine sparkling wines for several years now, and we are succeeding with this wine. Our pride in our long history will be reflecting even more in our new identity that will be revealing next year, 2024. Our know-how is also expressed by Maison Montmousseau in the Touraine region, where we produce Crémant de Loire and Touraine sparkling with a dominant of Chenin with a great tension. And also by our single vineyard estate, Domaine Kwame, in the Vouvray region, where we produce more sweet sparkling wine, also with Chenin 100%. So thank you for your attention. We remain at your disposal should you have any question. Thanks again.
Thank you, Laurent, Pierre, and Séverine. There are a few questions here to run through. If I'd like to ask Meg, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question, Meg.
Yes, thank you very much. That was really fascinating. And I love your description of the qualities that the second fermentation and the Charmat method gives to the wine. I was wondering, how long do you leave the wine in the autoclave in the pressure tank? 30 days is a minimum in Prosecco, for example, in Conegliano, but many leave it longer to add a little more complexity. But what I'm hearing is you really like that freshness and liveliness. So first question, how long do you leave it? And then the second question is, are there any regulations that you have to adhere to, understanding that it's not a traditional method wine with the AOP?
So for the doing in autoclave, to make the second fermentation, we need 3 weeks. But if we want to make aging on lees and embrassage
and pump over,
we can keep the wine during 2 or 3 months on its lees to bring roundness and more complexity but in the main product is not the objective. The objective is to have fruit and intensity. So it's not an obligation to make exactly.
Yeah, you have. So that will reply probably to your second question for the legal or law situation. There is in France two it's appellation, which is vin mousseux, sorry, and vin mousseux de qualité. Yeah, and this difference between both is the time on lease. So as Séverine just said, we will have more and longer will be the wine on lease, more we will have this expression of lease. So then we will be on quality. So regarding the appellation, yeah, we do have one. But compared to still wine, if you want, sometimes people can be more common with this. It can be compared to vin de France versus an AOP wine. So that's more or less why we are able or legally say it's in this vision. When we are in vin mousseux or vin mousseux de qualité, we will have this vision of vin de France. And also there is also part of aging on this.
And the secondary aromas with the aging is a problem to the first aromas because the fruity is
squeeze.
Oui,
yeah,
is dominated by the second aroma.
Okay, so yeah, tu veux dire?
Bah, qu'en fait, si on laisse trop longtemps sur l'île, on n'a plus le fruit.
Okay,
voilà.
So yeah, what she's saying is mainly we don't have any more the fruits aromatic, but more the lees and the second fermentation aspects. So then we will switch to more roundness and fleshy body. Then we will lose this neat and straight profile.
Thank you very much. That was very helpful.
Clear enough? Yeah?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Meg. I'd like to hand over to Wink. Wink has a question.
Hi, thanks for explaining the Charmat method and how you're using it. It really is linked to Meg's question in a way about aiming for an aromatic wine with short time on lees. Are you using a different yeast strain for the prise de mousse than you would for the traditional or champagne method?
Not because we want to have the aroma of the grape and not the aroma of the fermentation. So we prefer secure the origin of the grape.
The primary
so for Chenin, the citrus, floral notes, for Pinot de Nice, the spicy and fruity notes.
So it's the same.
Yes.
C'est la même.
En fait, on utilise toujours la même levure. Ouais. La
Yeah,
plus neutre
that's the
possible.
same. The same for the traditional and the Charmat. Yeah.
Okay.
As neutral as possible.
So it's a neutral champagne yeast, effectively.
It's only to make the fermentation.
It's not specific to champagne. I don't know if it's typical to champagne.
It's a classical, yes.
Yeah, it's a classic,
Okay.
natural and classical yeast for the second fermentation.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Wink. And now Nick Room, would you like to ask your question, Nick?
Thanks, Andrea. Thank you very much, guys, for a lovely talk. Very informative and nice to see you again. Yeah, I'm just asking about pet nat. It's rising interest in the wine trade. I'm just wondering if you're doing anything in that area to innovate.
Yeah, Laurent, do you want to?
The pet nat?
Yep.
Yes, please.
Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, on the Ackerman side, we're exploring new territories, indeed. We launched a few years ago a wine called X Gold and X Black, made out of different grape variety, and especially the Pinot de Nice, to really get a very aromatic wine and with lots of freshness. A wine which is dedicated to bars, to mixology, to the young population, and we're now exploring new ways of consumption for the HoReCa. So we have a project for 2025 in that direction as well. You know, in a sense of having a more young ritual of consumption. So these are things we're working on. I don't know if it answers your question, but this is more or less the way we're looking at it. When you look at the sparkling map, on one side you have the very classic product, sparkling, with vin mousseux, champagne on the more premium side, and on the other side of the map you have more modern consumption, like the prosecco or the cava, looking at mixology. And the most famous one in Europe at the moment is definitely the spritz. So these are, Ackerman has a vision of producing nice Loire Valley sparkling wines, but we also want to explore new territory to recruit new consumers. So we are open to innovation, and this is a bit like Jean-Baptiste Ackerman. When he started, he was a pioneer. He was very innovative at that time. So we keep that in our DNA, and we have planned for innovation. Next project will be 2025.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Much now, but
thank you.
Thank you, Laurent. And I'd like to start, Becky Sue, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you for this great presentation. It's very timely because I'm just updating my book on sparkling wine. How long has Ackerman been using the Charmat method? And did they stop and start, or is it something new? Also, do they have a proprietary method with the Charmat? I know you showed us 2 different tanks, but I wasn't quite sure what you were doing. And also, what are the different markets for the Charmat and the Traditionnel? So how long has Ackerman been using the Charmat? Is it a special method? And what are the 2 markets for the Charmat and Traditionnel?
So we make a Charmat method 40 years ago.
Almost.
How many? How many?
40.
40?
Yes.
40?
Yes, 40.
And our particularity or signature is the balance between sugar and acidity, because we don't make wine with a high level of sugar, and we have bought all the time wine with a big acidity at the sud of the France, in the Loire Valley. We make a big selection of the sample of the wine we bought after.
Bulk, yeah.
So it's our particularity. We prefer the real fruity and not the sugar.
Is there sugar in the wine, residual sugar?
For dry wine, only 10 or 11 grams per liter.
And it's residual sugar, yeah.
Yes, it's residual sugar.
And you ask also regarding the facilities about the tank. This is the red one you have in the middle in these pictures. They are really specific because they can support a huge pressure, because this second fermentation is made into the tank. So they support around 5 bar of pressure, almost the same as in bottle. So with a classic stainless steel tank, the tank will explode. So that's why this is a really specific one. If I'm not wrong, is fiber, specific fiber used to support this pressure. And some people may think they are strange to have dark thing on it. It's just because on it you have the second fermentation and you have the condensation between the outside atmosphere and the inside one. So that's why this is important for you to see these two different tanks. Here on the left, this is the classical one you may saw some on some vineyards. And here those are really specific and well controlled because the pressure is really important. So our master sailors and the worker there are really focused on not opening any doors or any windows on these different vats, otherwise that will explode on them. Okay.
What is the pressure in the tank and what is the pressure of the finished wines?
We 5.5 in the tank, F5 at the final in the bottle.
For both the, for all, and what about the Cremant?
For the Cremant is the same.
5.
Okay,
Yeah.
and why did you decide to start with Charmant 40 years ago? Was it a question of increasing production?
Good question. Good question.
Well, I mean, Severin was not there, of course, and neither me. So, but I guess, you know, when you look at the Charmat production, definitely you can be more efficient in terms of production. So the price point, the cost of producing it is definitely lower. Therefore, you can address more standard or even entry-level segments. So I guess it was a matter of, you know, completing the offer beside the method traditional.
So am I to understand that your market for Charmat is the more entry level and your market for the traditional is more experienced consumers?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what is your total production and how much of it is the different kinds of sparkling?
In Charmat or in both traditional and Charmat?
Both,
Correct.
and what percentage of all of your wines is that?
Quasi 4 million of bottles in Charmat.
And in traditional method?
And in traditional,
Roughly.
Roughly the same. So in total, around 8 million.
And what percentage is that of your total production?
We produce around 24 million bottles, of which 8 million sparkling.
Okay, thank you. I'll stop talking now.
But
Thank
thanks.
you, Sue. That's great. And Liz has got a quick question here, just a question to expand on.
Hello, could I ask you to say more about the Pinot de Nice, particularly, and also the Grelot grapes, on how plantings are at the moment? Because certainly Pinot de Nice has been declining quite sharply. Is there action prompted by you to increase this, and with Grelot as well?
So 15 years ago, Pinot de Nice was in extinction in the Loire Valley because the valorization of the still rosé wine without appellation was
dying.
Not sufficient to the wine growers. So we decided to help a cooperative to plant Pinot de Nice to make the X Noir. So we participate to 5 hectares of plantation to have constant investment in Pinot de Nice each year to have quantity very stable,
stable sourcing and also stable quality. So that's why 15 years ago we invest on the vineyard. I don't know if you got that name, but it's in Vendôme. We help this cooperative to be back in life, if I may, because they were suffering of the lack of volume. So we did believe, and we still believe, in this grape and on the profile of this grape. This is also why we using it for the Charmat method, because the expression is uncommon. You cannot compare it to any other specific grape, at least for only one grape wine. And this is also why we are quite proud of, is because it's really an old grape. So being able to help winemakers, so this is the human part, we're helping wine grower to develop and increase their yield and their vineyards, but also helping them on the developing the knowledge and the well-known around the world of this appellation, of this grape, sorry. So yeah, we're investing financially and also in the human part, because this is important also to take that into account. The Pinot de Nice was a fight for us to get in front of everyone.
And for the wine growers, it's a good valorization now, today, with the Pinot de Nice for the X Noir. It's
excellent. And is this producing results? Are other people planting it again? And is it being used in still wines? I know there's a little around, but
no wines. No, because Pinot de Nice really is a good grape, because it's not very par la maladie du bois.
Okay, it's not affected by any root disease. So he is not impacted by any specific disease on the trunk or on the vines itself. So it's quite a good health for the vineyards.
So we have sufficient of.
We have enough surface.
Yes.
And for the moment, there is no other winemaker who are increasing or just planting Pinot de Nice on this region.
A shame, because sparkling wine, you've got the character of it, but you get more character in still wine, inevitably, because of just the way the wine is.
In rosé still wine, yes, but it's not the same result, because the sparkling wine bring more
aromatic.
Yes, more expressive. More, it's easier with the sparkling wines, with the Pinot de Nice.
That's right. We used to do it, if I'm not wrong, we used to do it in still wine, but the choice was to let, again, the expression of the grapes. So it was more efficient and understandable in terms of profile to bring it only for sparkling under the Charmat method.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you. There's a question from Graham Harding. It's more about the style of the Charmat wines that you're producing.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. You talked about the ability to customize the Charmat wine to customer taste. And I'd be fascinated to know how you manage that process, both technically and in marketing terms. So I'm very much reminded of the since 19th century Champagne, when agents in London would customize wine to individual customer use. Now, I'm guessing that with the tanks that you're using, you've got a pretty significant minimum volume. But can you tell us anything more about how you do it and how you organize the marketing of that and the selection process with your customers?
For the process, we choose the grapes, the blend with these grapes, and after we can make different time of aging to adapt to the customer. So for the process is the first blend, and after the adjustment with after the fermentation.
And after, in terms of marketing, we are quite happy. We have our marketing leader, director with us, but I'm going to try to make that clear. Most of the time, this is our customer who are coming to us for a project, so they're already aware of this method. Otherwise, for our product, we do talk about the grapes and the expression of the wine. So we are not really talking about the Charmat method itself. We mostly talk about and market, if we want, the wine into the expression and on the profile of the wine. So here, when Séverine talked about the X Noir, so the specific Charmat method wine we do for the Pinot de Nice, we only talk about the Pinot de Nice, the profile, and the style of the wine. We're not going in too deep on the elaboration, because we can see now most of the consumer don't do the split, and they're not really aware of these two different methods. So when we talk to B2B business, if we want, it's mainly private label or specific market, and they are looking for it. Otherwise, they will go for premium, and then they will look for an appellation like Crémant or Saumur.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question: is the big difference in the price between the Charmat and the traditional method? Is that obviously that is one of the main differences, but it'd be interesting to know the difference.
You mean
The price of the wine
On the shelf?
on the shelf, or
yes,
the cost of it?
On the shelf. We can talk only for French market, because we know that from
just to
different
get an idea of the gap.
Yeah, from different market, we know the different taxes, the logistic cost, and everything will change totally from simple to double. So for in France, yeah, there is a difference. And I think about the off trade, Laurent, probably if we compare the X Noir to the Crémant de Loire, we'll have a difference of around €5 difference on the shelf.
Not huge.
On the shelf in French market, I mean. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
5 to 10, yeah.
if you look at the vin mousseux, and therefore the Charmat
Classic.
wine segment in France, it's around €3 per bottle, and Crémant de Loire is around 5, starting from around 5 to €8. So there is a significant difference.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really mainstream to medium wine category.
Yeah.
Michelle was asking about the varying sugar levels that you have in your different styles.
Yeah, like with Prosecco and other Charmats. I mean, they have Brut, Brut Nature, dry, extra dry. Do you have the same?
But yes, but we have only Brut, demi-fin.
We can do all this style, but mostly
it's dry and demi-sec.
dry and Brut and
medium,
demi-sec.
medium dry.
Half dry, yeah.
Half dry.
Half dry. So the sugar level is between for the Brut is around 10 to 12, and for the demi-sec is going around
30 to 35.
Yeah, 30, 35.
I see. And do you find a growing trend for drier, or is it definitely more focused on the sweeter side, the market request?
Is the market depend of the
market?
The market.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say yeah, depending on the different requests.
We can make, but it's not a demand.
After again, this is specific demand. We're able to do any sweetest levels. Or this is not a barrier. The sugar level will be flexible.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Trevor has a question. Trevor, go ahead, please.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the presentation. Very interesting. Can you say a little bit more about the vineyards? Are they dedicated to these sparkling wines? And would they be, for example, flatter, younger vines, higher density? I don't know. And is the harvest earlier than for still wine?
Yes, for all the sparkling wine, Charmat method and traditional method, the vineyard is with high density. And La Taille in December,
the pruning is
Pruning,
specific to the
to keep more buds.
For the next year, yeah.
For the next year,
vintage, yeah.
we are looking for yield. Depend if it's AOP wine or without AOP, but between 70 and 90 hectoliters per hectare.
That's the yield, yeah.
So,
and for example, the Chenin, are they dedicated Chenin vineyards for sparkling?
Yeah. For the sparkling wine is not the same than the Anjou Blanc or Saumur Blanc or other still wine.
Yeah, so really specific vineyard who is planned for sparkling will be only doing sparkling, and for the still will be only doing still. Mostly this is the idea.
Is the vendange earlier than for still wine?
Sorry?
The harvest? Is the harvest earlier than for still wine?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are this year in 23. We are beginning in August, 21 August, we decided.
So yeah, you can see we already have an idea of when we're going to harvest for the sparkling, for the traditional method. And for the still wine, we will wait a little bit longer. So mostly for the sparkling, for the traditional method, you have to have an high acidity and a low ABV on the grapes. So that's why we start earlier.
The acidity is the character, the more important.
And are the vines younger on average?
Younger, but we can have 1 year with 30 years and with a good yield if the complantation, le renouvellement.
It's renew the vineyards quite often and quite good.
Is well made.
It's well made, yeah.
Okay,
So
thank you.
the idea behind the sparkling production is to have a great balance between maturity and acidity in order to get freshness of the wine. So normally we are more productive in sparkling vineyards. We harvest earlier and we press right away to avoid any oxidation. The total objective is to get the freshness.
Thank you.
Okay, we're just nearing the end. There is one question here from Becky Sue, which is she was just really asking about whether you can purchase your Charmat wines in the US. Do you export to the US?
Yes.
America?
Laurent will be.
I don't remember all the products we sell there, but there is one that we sell to Total Wines called Borrasca. It's a white bottle, and that's a Charmat method.
Okay.
Could you repeat the name again?
Borrasca, I'm trying to remember, BORASCA, something like that. Is in Total Wine Shop.
SSK, yeah. And there is a white wine, a rosé, and there is also a blue wine, a Borrasca blue.
The cocktail.
This is something we develop with the customer.
It's for Monsieur Touton?
No.
Did you say?
No.
No, Total Wines, Total Wines.
Total, okay.
Total. That you can
work with Mr. Touton as well.
You will see the profile we are able to do for the US market with this range. Like that, you can see the different profile of wine we're able to do. Okay.
And do you just want to ask your last question, Becky Sue, regarding the demi-sec?
Yes, for the demi-sec, what food do people eat with it traditionally? Is it a dessert wine, aperitif? How do they use it?
Mainly I will go for Chinese. Chinese food, yeah. Or Asian food, not being too specific, but mostly Chinese, but yeah, Asian food.
Okay.
And also, of course, aperitif and for enjoying just a glass of wine. But yeah, Donna, if I may mention spicy food, I'm quite agree with that. It's like all the licorice wine we are able to do with the Chenin. This is something untypical, but the perfect pairing For licorice wine, like we have in Noir, Quart de Chaume, Bonzo, Coteau du Léon, most of the time we can suggest them with spicy food because this is the perfect balance between the sugar level and the spiciness.
In the Loire, do they drink demi-sec?
Yep. Yes.
And but with spicy foods or differently?
In France, you know, this is really specific. We can drink wine with everything. So we're not trying to pair demi-sec with something else. Most of the time is during appetizer. And then we can mostly go for Crémant or Saumur demi-sec, and then we will have it for the meal, with the meal. So honestly, this is mainly both brut and demi-sec. So we're not, in France at least, we're not trying to pair it with a specific meal.
I can see I need a field trip.
But if any one of you are passing by our cellars, just being free to tell it, and we're more than happy to welcome you and have a tasting.
Definitely, definitely.
That would be a good way for you to taste our different wine.
Okay. Well, thank you. I can't see, there's no more questions up there, so I'd just like to hand over to Liz to say our thanks.
That was absolutely great. Thank you, Séverine, Pierre, Laurent. Very, very interesting. And I think we've all learned a lot from it. And hopefully we'll understand Loire sparkling wines and the innovations rather more. So we're truly grateful that you've spent your time with us and the preparation. And I think we'll all be looking forward to going to Ackerman again. I can vouch for the experience. It's a very warm welcome and a splendid cellars to walk around afterwards. Before we go, I'd like to mention our next Let's Talk About, which is in 2 weeks' time, same time, 2 o'clock UK, when Giovanni Manetti, who's the president of the Consorzio Chianti Classico, will be bringing us up to date on everything that's going on there, including the UGAs. And that will be our last Let's Talk before the summer break. So I hope to see lots of you there.